Stand by for action.
Drop your guns, everyone. And remember, I mean business.
What's your name, boy?
Joe 90.
An unusual name. What are you doing here?
I'm an agent for the World Intelligence Network.
Satisfactory. Most satisfactory.
Look, there are 600 people up there with about 40 minutes to live. Now, you can't help them, but I believe we can. Now, what's it gonna be?
It would seem that this Captain Scarlet is now indestructible. This presents us with the clear and exciting expectation that he will become our greatest asset in the fight against the Mysterons.
If anything else goes wrong, I want you to be ready to act immediately.
Now, that was no ordinary breakdown. We've got to get up there and help them, but fast.
Thunderbirds are go.
Anything can happen in the next half hour.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Puppets Go Boom! I am Patricia.
My name is Arun.
And it is the 60th anniversary of Thunderbirds. And the Jerry Anderson Company had decided that they're going to be releasing two iconic classic episodes for the first time in theaters with their 4K restoration and their surround sound. And it's been released to hundreds of theaters, and we went to one of them, and we're going to give you our thoughts into them.
Yeah, so the idea is that obviously with the 60th anniversary coming up, and that is that the light theaters that are like dotted across the UK decided that they were going to do a showing of two movies that when they were advertised, they said they were restored in 4K, and so they've come from like the Blu-ray release of Thunderbirds, which is available now. I think they're taking pre-orders. I can't remember which, but so we and Patricia were quite curious about it. We said, well, maybe some things might happen there whilst we're at the event. So we got together and we decided to go to the theater, and so I mean, like it wasn't really. I gotta be honest with you, it wasn't really much of an event. It just kind of felt like a normal everyday sort of kind of like trips to the cinema, really.
Yeah,
it wasn't like. I thought there would have been something more. I really thought there'd be like all the fans would have got together who were going to watch the theater and we talk about Thunderbirds, or like there'd be an event going on. But to be honest with you, like there was a children's birthday party like that was like next door, and then there was like a few other things that were kind of going on, and it was pretty much like a regular everyday. Really, it doesn't feel like anything. Unfortunately, I thought it'd be something more special.
Yeah,
I really did.
This isn't the first time in which we've had a special screening like this. I mean, we've been to a couple of them in the past, and some of them had varied more so than others. But I would say that in terms of this, I mean, you were expecting something like the 60th anniversary of what is considered to be the peak of Super Mario Nation, one of the biggest cult hits of the Great Britain, and you would think that all the fans who grew up with it in the 1960s, the fans who grew up with it in the 90s, and probably like the new generation who probably saw the reboots or were introduced to it through their parents or their grandparents would have been all over for.
I really thought so like a representative Anderson Films probably would have been there or something like that.
Yeah, that would have been really interesting.
That would have been really cool if they kind of did that. But so effectively, like we just went in, the trailers played, and I got to be honest with you, the trailers are pretty much just were the trailers that they would regularly play in the light. Really, it was just the standard kind of like 20 minutes that we would have for like advertisements and trailers, and then we just got straight into it. Like there was no like I really thought they would have been like done like a little bit like an introduction, like for like all the the newer people who would have like come in, because there actually were quite a few kids there actually. So in the cinema, and so I really thought they would have done like an introduction to Thunderbirds, like or like done some of the special features.
Yeah, like for example, I mean, I would have thought that maybe Jamie Anderson, who is Jerry and Sylvia's son, who is currently the CEO and president of Jerry Anderson Company, I thought that maybe he would have stepped in and introduced himself and talked about the minor history of Thunderbirds, like we saw in the tons of documentaries that is currently on the Century 21 YouTube channel. I thought that maybe just a quick introduction for those who are not familiar with Thunderbirds. It's like this is the 60 years of looking back on the legacy of Thunderbirds, and maybe they could have like spliced in some other things, like another example, like Space 1999 is celebrating its 50th anniversary right around the same time. They could have like maybe shown promotions for that, or maybe they could even like showcased maybe some clips of other Super Mario Nation shows that could have been into it. It would have been interesting to see it properly promoted as just to being like a regular theater theater experience.
Yeah, like it's just they could have like with the advertising space that they had, I really thought they would have been like, oh hey, let's put some special featurettes or like let's promote some of our like other like this thing one thing you think they would have promoted during that time would be the Anderson store.
Yeah,
but they didn't.
Yeah,
like,
speaking of which, the Anderson store is where we got our shirts from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if you want to go get a shirt, I mean, I guess us listening to this review, I guess is where you're going to hear the Anderson store, I guess, on Old School Lane. But like I digress. Like I really thought there would have been a bit more to it. I would have thought, but we thought, okay, then now we finally got into the feature, and I would have thought, okay, maybe we're going to see some like what they've done with the restoration, with the graphics, with the sound, and everything like that. It's a bit grainy, and the sound was a bit like they didn't really utilize like all the surround sound that was like in the theater. Like if anything, they kind of just used like the two speakers that were like at the front of the cinema and the bass and the woofer, and that was it.
Yeah, that was
like
it.
They didn't utilize like any like the surround sound whatsoever. And I thought, you know what, that was a missed opportunity. I would have thought this would have been a great opportunity to demonstrate what they could have done like to make the Thunderbirds experience a bit more immersive. And I really would have thought like they would have used as much as they could. I mean, in regards to like stretching it like all the way to the widescreen, that would have been a very heroic attempt to try and do that without like stretching out the actual thing itself. So I mean, unfortunately, they have to keep it in the square,
which I have seen before, by the way, where I think at the DVD release, that's they actually did stretch it out widescreen for people to watch.
I understand it doesn't look all that great, so I understand why they kind of kept it in that thing. But looking at it on the screen, I don't know if it's just the fact that the cinema just didn't do it justice. I mean, I don't know about all the other light experiences, but this is like a brand new. The Red Rock in Starport is like a brand new cinema. So at least in regards to all the other cinemas that are like are around the UK. So I don't know if it's just a case of that the new screens and the new cameras and everything like that just didn't do completely didn't do the Thunderbirds justice in that case, but it doesn't look very good, upscaled to the way that it is, and I really would have thought that, I mean, the one thing I'll just safely say is that I noticed that there was a few other details that were kind of like coming in from like stretching it all out, which unfortunately, like, I think the DVD version kind of like shows you like, what fabrics are kind of like used on the puppets and what they, some of the mistakes that were also kind of like, pointed out. That's one thing about it as well, like, when you really stretch it out, you can sort of kind of see the mistakes that they made, when designing the props, like, Virgil's steering wheel on the Thunderbird 2, you can notice it isn't painted all the way through, and there's a few other things that are like, also, the one thing I noticed is that I didn't really make out, and maybe this is my eyesight, maybe other people are going to point out, well, in the standard versions you can make this out, but I didn't realize the Fire Flash was actually had on the words Terranian on there, and I really thought that's a good callback to Stingray for for Titan, because he called Joy Tempest Terranian, and so that was actually a really good callback to that.
It is a good callback.
I mean, I didn't notice that until they actually made it bigger, and so that was quite interesting to see.
Yeah.
And like you can see that unfortunately the stock footage also as well doesn't really hold up as all that well in regards to Tracy Island and things like that. Like I think if anything, it just kind of makes you kind of look like what you're watching, like a classic movie.
I mean, technically, it came out in 1965.
It did, yeah, but, I mean, when they said, oh, we've got this massive 4K restoration of Thunderbirds, you would have thought, oh, wow, like, they're going to, like, do a proper, like, computer cleanup, and, you're going to see some, it is going to, like, look like, oh, wow, it looks like you're actually there, seeing the puppets being moved and stuff like that. And by the way, you can see more of the strings.
You can.
Like, I don't know if, it's funny because you see more of the strings, you see more of the mistakes, you see, like, other nitbits that you would have thought,
you see more of you see that it's an obvious background. You can definitely tell that when the plane is being moved up into the air or when the vehicles are driving, you can definitely tell that it was, you can tell that the background is basically just moving and nothing else is moving. It's more obvious when you look at it in a wider screen and with more detail that, this is not supposed to emulate real life. You can definitely tell it was handcrafted and it was made in puppet form.
Yeah, so, the two episodes that they do here for Thunderbirds is, so the first one is Terror in the Skies, which I think is a good episode, I think, to put on the big screen.
It's the first episode.
It is the first episode, so it is a good introduction, I think, to Thunderbirds. But, funny enough, they actually decided to go with, I think it's the fifth episode, I think?
The fourth.
The fourth episode, I should say.
Yeah, the fourth episode, which is Terror in New York City.
Terror in New York City, and which I think, here's the thing. Like, I'm not saying that those aren't good episodes of Thunderbirds.
Those are the classic episodes.
Those are the classic episodes, yeah. But I'm going going to be honest with you. Like, this is a personal favorite of mine. I would have gone with City of Fire.
Okay.
Like, because you see all the explosions in Thompson Tower. You see all the danger that's in there. The tower falls down, then the Firefly comes in, has to move all the rubble so they can get underneath to go save the family. Like, there's far more going on in City of Fire, I think, for the cinematic experience, I think, than, I would say, Terror in New York City or, Terror in the Skies.
Well, I can understand for Terror in the Sky because it was the first episode.
I understand, yeah, so I'll give Terror in the Skies leeway because of that.
Yeah, and again, I will give leeway over for Terror in New York City because that was the 4th episode. City of Fire, I believe, was either the 10th episode or the 12th episode, so they kind of had an idea on, what kind of suspense and action they can put into the story and into what the puppets can do.
Yeah, and you might notice actually here on this table, this is the first time actually we don't have our our tablets with us and or any notes or anything like that because unfortunately there's really not much to write home about. Like all they did was basically just show 2 episodes and then we were out of the theater before we knew it. And
it was, and we kind of saw like in the background where people's reaction and all that kind of stuff. Some of them were actually falling asleep.
And actually one guy tried to liven up the audience after the first episode, and we also kind of politely collabed with him and everything like that.
Yeah. The credits of the first episode, he actually stood up and applauded and nobody was buying it.
No one was saying it. Yeah. In fact, actually, this is really sad to report this, but unfortunately, some people halfway through Terror in the Skies actually left the theater. Yeah, I think people would have been into that if what was on the screen was appealing, but it isn't. Like you can see how it's just forget the fact that it's not in widescreen format. It's the fact that it's a bit grainy. You can sort of kind of see some of the mistakes. Like this could easily they should have. I think they should have just ran this through through a machine and say, okay, let's just take out some of the graining. Let's just take out some of the mistakes, things like. I mean, we're at the point where now we can take episodes of the Addams Family and put them in color. At the point. And actually, you've seen, I think, anyone's seen some of the bootleg, episodes of Super Mario Nation shows. Some people actually are uploading to YouTube and uploading them into color.
Yeah,
and doing that.
Yeah, and even Jerry Anderson's company has actually taken some of the episodes of Fireball XL5 and Supercar and Four Feather Falls and brought them into color.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not impossible for them to use computer technology to clean up the film and everything like that and make it look really appealing. But unfortunately, in this case, it just doesn't.
And here's the thing. I think it's a situation where it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's like, okay, if you don't take away the messiness and all the graininess, then yeah, it's not going to look appealing to modern eyes. But for the people who grew up with it, if you clean it up and if you polish it, then it's going to take away a lot of the charm that a lot of people fell in love with the first time.
It's interesting. Is that debate where do you play the original game or do you play the remake? And so there's some people who have grown up playing with the original game, and there's some people who have grown up who play the remake. And so, again, I grew up with Doom 1993, and as we all know, it's a really fun shooting game, despite the fact that, some people today would look at it and say, oh, it's a retro, pixely kind of experience. And then some people who grew up with Doom 2016, it's they have a far more different experience that they had with Doom than in 2016 than I had with Doom in 1993. It's sort of kind of one of those situations, I mean, maybe the same things is happening. Eventually, somewhere down the line, we are going to cover the CGI, Thunderbirds Argo and the new Captain Scarlet. So maybe somewhere down the line we'll probably be having that same discussion again. But it would have been nice to if they'd utilized the the restoration a bit more. They'd utilized the surround sound in the cinema a bit more, and they gave us a bit more of an indoors experience. And maybe you and I could have complained it takes away from the charm. But I mean the original experience that we all had of Thunderbirds was on TV, and it's like that joke on the in the Simpsons movie, Homer Simpson gets up during the Insy Scratchy movie and says, why are we watching this in the theater when we can watch it on TV for free? And unfortunately, that's sort of kind of what Homer Simpson would kind of be saying if he saw the Thunderbirds 60th anniversary. I'm sorry, but as much as we like Thunderbirds, I mean, in regards to the cinematic experience of Thunderbirds, I mean, I've got to be honest with everybody, I wouldn't recommend it. at the end of the day, all it is just Thunderbirds, like on a movie theater, and you don't really get anything more immersive than just watching it regularly on TV with a soundbar and a woofer. I mean, that's what we did when we first watched Thunderbirds, and we thought it was a treat.
Yeah, and now here's the thing: if the audience was a lot more immersive, if we would have had the opportunity to talk to people before and afterwards, and we would have probably had the opportunity to before the movie started to see more of Jerry.
It would be nice
Anderson's
to have a social. That would be nice if they'd organise a social like before the screening, and then we had a chance to talk with everybody and talk about how much we like Thunderbirds and Super Mario Nation. The fact that hey, we're doing a podcast and you can come watch it and listen to us if you want to. It would be nice to get together with other Super Mario Nation fans to talk about it. But it was more like, let's get in the theater. We all sat down and watched it, and then we all went home again. And if anything, I was just kind of listening to everyone kind of complain about how not much of an experience it was really.
Yeah. I mean, it's a disappointment because, we saw people who wore similar shirts that we were wearing.
Yeah, exactly.
And, we saw a whole different ranges of people coming in. We saw people in their 60s and 70s who clearly grew up with it as kids. We saw people in their 40s who probably saw the remakes, the revival in the 90s. We saw their kids, most likely, for those who were introduced to it through their parents or grandparents. And so, we saw a massive generation of 3, different age groups coming into seeing this. And I think that, this would have been a great opportunity for the kids who are coming into this, learning about Thunderbirds. But yeah.
I'll basically give this, I'll basically just say this about this Thunderbird screening. There's far more enthusiasm for this than there was for Lightyear when that first came out.
Oh,
remember, we sat there with 7 or 8 other people.
Yeah.
And they were all adult Pixar fans.
Yeah.
And we were watching just for the review.
Yeah. And in this one, there were 40 people, and
there was a huge amount of people.
Yeah, there were 40
this.
people ranging from kids, adults, and older people.
Yeah, but it's sad that they had this experience because now if Anderson Films ever tried to do this again, unfortunately, they might think about this experience that they had previously. May never, when they say, "Oh, we'll pass."
Well, actually, it actually had the opposite reaction. I've been reading reviews on people's experiences, and they loved it, and they said that reminiscing about the classic episodes that they grew up with and how it looked great and the surround sound. Maybe the theater that we were at was the problem.
Maybe I don't know, but it's my experience of it. I thought there was just going to be a bit more. I would have thought I thought there was going to be a little bit of an introduction. There was going to be maybe some pushing of sort of the Anderson store maybe, and maybe a little message maybe to say thank you to all the fans, something like that. But we didn't get any of that.
No, they never mentioned the fact that there was a Blu-ray of Thunderbirds for people to tune into. They never mentioned about the merchandise. There's not even a mention of the fact that in addition to the 60 years of Thunderbirds celebration, that London is holding a massive exposition of both Thunderbirds and Space 1999 at the Museum of Brands. No mention of that either.
Yeah, they should have said, oh hey, here's all this other cool stuff that's currently happening as well, besides doing this.
Yeah.
And the
only way you're going to be able to know about that is if you go over to the Jerry Anderson website and read about all this.
Yeah, just the only thing I can recommend, and I get maybe some people like this, but in regards to me and Patricia, we, as people who have had other cinematic experiences besides Thunderbirds, I have to say they could have done a whole lot more.
Yeah, they could have. They could have done a whole lot more.
Yeah, and so my recommendation is, look, just if you either own it either on VHS or DVD or Blu-ray, just put it in the machine, fire up your soundbar, and just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Because I think the TV experience, I think, is dare I say, I think is a bit more, of a experience of naturally watching Thunderbirds than watching it on the big screen.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry too, guys. I as somebody who was new into the Super Mario Nation phase, where people were growing up with the show and absolutely loving it, I was hoping to see similar people, talking about the experience and reliving the experience in theaters for the first time.
I just want to say, Patricia right now here here is someone who was introduced to Thunderbirds at a very, very late age, and is already a fan. So, like, it's not too late for Super Mario Nation in this stage of the game. Like, it is a unique art style that can gravitate towards people.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, like, I just hope maybe in the future, they'll, who knows, maybe when Hit Squad comes out, maybe they'll probably, do something a bit more different. I don't know.
That'd be great.
Yeah, like, who knows, maybe we might get something out of that. But I think in future projects, I think in regards to things like that, I think they need to give the fans a bit more of an immersive experience, in my opinion.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. Well, that's it for our discussion of the Thunderbird 60th Anniversary Theater Experience. And, yeah, we hope that you enjoy this, and see you around soon. Take care.
Bye-bye.